The day my husband tried to kill me, he kissed my forehead like a man who loved me. Grant always smelled like cedar and cold air in the mornings. That day was no different. The house was quiet. The trees beyond the glass walls were silver with frost. Our son, Noah, sat in his wheelchair by the fireplace, exactly where Grant preferred him, visible. 2 days, Grant said, brushing a strand of hair from my face. Seattle will be quick. He held my shoulders when he said it, like he was steadying me. Don't take Noah anywhere, he added softly. The roads are icy. Moving him isn't safe. I'll worry the whole time. He didn't look at Noah when he said it. He pulled out his phone instead. Tap. Swipe. Confirm. The front door clicked. The security system chimed in its pleasant, genderless voice. All secure. Grant smiled at the sound. He kissed me again, longer this time, then walked out into the thin winter light. His SUV rolled down the narrow road that cut through the trees outside Portland. No gates. No fences. Just forest and privacy. Privacy had been his idea. Isolation had been his upgrade. 10 seconds after his car disappeared from sight, something impossible happened. Behind me, fabric shifted. I turned. Noah stood up. Not slowly, not trembling. He simply rose from the wheelchair like someone who had been sitting too long. My mind refused to process it. For 3 years, my stepson had been nonverbal, paralyzed from the waist down after the accident that killed his mother. Doctors said his neurological damage was permanent, severe, irreversible. I had bathed him, lifted him, fed him, carried him to bed. And now he walked past me. Calmly. He crossed the living room and went straight to the wall panel that controlled the house's climate system. He shut off the furnace. Then he unlocked the nearest window and forced it open. Icy air rushed inside. My chest felt tight. My head was already light. Don't scream, he said. His voice was steady, controlled. Older than 10. I think my heart actually stopped. He switched the furnace to 4CO cycle, Noah continued. He's trying to make us fall asleep. Carbon monoxide. I couldn't smell anything. That's the point, Noah said. My knees weakened. I grabbed the edge of the kitchen island. He disabled the alarm 2 weeks ago, Noah went on. I saw him remove the wire. I stared at him. You can talk. He looked at me with eyes that had never once looked like a child's. I've always been able to. The world tilted. What are you saying? I'm saying, he replied quietly, that he's been trying to kill us since 8:42 this morning. The digital clock on the oven blinked 8:53. Grant hadn't even been gone 15 minutes. My lungs burned. Noah moved with frightening efficiency. He opened 2 more windows. He grabbed a kitchen towel and pressed into my hand. Breathe near the window. How do you know this? He met my eyes. Because he tried it once before. My blood went cold. The accident, he said. The word cracked something open inside me. 3 years ago, Grant's first wife died when her car veered off a mountain road. Brake failure, they said. Snow. Bad luck. Noah had been in the back seat. He survived. Barely. Both legs shattered. Head trauma. He woke up in the hospital silent. Doctors diagnosed neurological impairment. Trauma-induced paralysis. Grant had been devastated. Or so I believed. She didn't lose control, Noah said. He cut the brake line. I saw him under the car that morning. I couldn't breathe. I thought he was fixing something, Noah continued. He told me not to tell Mom. Said it was a surprise. His jaw tightened. When the car wouldn't stop, she knew. I pressed my hand to my mouth. My legs healed, he said. But the medical files didn't. The room felt unreal. He changed doctors. Switched specialists. I heard him on the phone. He said if I ever walked again, everything would complicate the narrative. The narrative. Insurance. Sympathy. Control. I realized something, Noah said. If I looked strong, I would die like she did. So he became harmless. Invisible. A child-shaped piece of furniture. My stomach twisted. All these years, I had thought I was protecting him. He had been protecting himself. And now, apparently, protecting me. My phone vibrated on the counter.
Grant.
Noah's entire body changed instantly. He dropped back into the wheelchair. His head tilted. His mouth slackened. His eyes lost focus. It was so precise it made my skin crawl. Breathe slowly, he whispered without moving his lips. He listens to breathing patterns. I answered.
Hi, I said.
Grant's voice was warm, concerned. You sound winded. The kindness was surgical. Did you open a window? I swallowed. It's a little stuffy.
A pause.
You didn't touch the furnace, did you? Not a loving question. A control question. I might have lowered it. Another pause. Longer. You should rest, he said gently. You sound tired. Translation, sleep. I will. Good girl. The line clicked dead. My hand shook so badly, I nearly dropped the phone. Noah didn't look at me. He'll check the interior cameras, he murmured. I scanned the walls. I don't see any. They're not obvious. He rolled, perfectly timed, toward a shelf near the hallway. He reached for an old stuffed bear, one Grant insisted Noah keep displayed. He turned its head slightly. One glass eye glinted. I felt something inside me fracture. He likes to watch reactions, Noah said. Grant wasn't just planning a quiet death.
He was staging it.
Watching.
My phone buzzed again.
A text. It's dark in there. Turn on a lamp. I want to see Noah. Noah's lips barely moved. He disabled infrared. He wants visible light. My hands felt numb. What do we do? We perform. The word landed like a verdict. I staggered slightly on purpose. Knocked over a glass. It shattered. I let my voice tremble. Grant, I don't feel well. I sent the message. Noah let out a weak, practiced cry. A broken sound I had heard 1,000 times before. Seconds later, Grant replied. You look delirious. Lie down. Don't open the door for anyone. Finish dying. Noah reached for something beneath the couch cushion. An old tablet. I told him it stopped working, he said. On the screen were system logs. Time stamps. Manual overrides. Furnace programming changes at 8:41 a.m. Carbon monoxide sensor disabled 14 days earlier. Camera access at 8:52. And then messages. Not with a random woman. With Haley, Grant's former startup partner. They had lost millions in a cryptocurrency scheme 2 years ago. Investors had begun circling. Lawsuits were pending. I had never known how bad it was. Grant had increased my life insurance policy last month. $4.3 million. The text thread scrolled. Grant, the house is isolated. CO leak plus delayed fire.
Clean.
Insurance clears debts. Haley, make sure the kid doesn't complicate it. Grant, he's basically furniture. I felt my heartbeat in my throat. My husband had reduced a child to an object. My stepson. Noah watched my face carefully. I needed you to see it, he said quietly. My stomach twisted. We can call the police. He shook his head. He's still monitoring. As if summoned by the thought, the shared vehicle tracking app on the tablet blinked. Grant's SUV icon moved along the highway toward Seattle. Then it stopped.
Paused.
The icon turned. He exited the highway. He's coming back, Noah said. Why? Noah refreshed the message thread. Haley, no fire alert. Go handle it. Of course. Grant wasn't suspicious. He was impatient. The house had not yet killed us. So he would. My hands stopped shaking. A strange calm settled in. How long? 40 minutes. Maybe less. What have you prepared? I asked him. He held my gaze. For weeks? There was something terrifying about that answer. Noah didn't reach for a weapon. He went to the electrical panel in the hallway closet. He opened it with a screwdriver he had hidden behind a loose baseboard. I rerouted one breaker line, he said, and set motion alerts that go somewhere he doesn't control. Where? An old smart speaker account linked to emergency dispatch. I stared at him. You're 10. He didn't smile. We don't fight him directly, he said. We trap him. I moved toward Grant's office. The drawer he always kept locked was slightly ajar. Inside wasn't a gun. It was worse. A marine flare pistol.
Signal fire.
Blinding.
Loud.
Not lethal, but enough to cause chaos. Enough to disorient. My pulse steadied. Outside, the forest stood silent. Inside, the house watched. And somewhere on that winding road, my husband was driving back to finish what he started. I realized something then. Grant thought he had built a perfect system. A house that obeyed him. A wife who trusted him. A child who couldn't speak. He had miscalculated. He had never imagined the furniture was listening. And now, for the first time since I married him, I wasn't afraid. I was waiting. Grant didn't text again. He didn't call. That was worse. If he had suspected something was wrong with the carbon monoxide plan, he would have maintained control through conversation. He would have guided me back towards sleep. Silence meant irritation. Silence meant adjustment. Noah watched the vehicle tracker.
He's not speeding, he said.
He's calm. Of course he was. Grant never rushed. He optimized. I moved through the house and closed only the windows that were visible to cameras, leaving the rear kitchen ones cracked just enough to keep the air clean. The cold stung my lungs, but clarity mattered more than comfort. How much does he know? I asked quietly. He thinks I can't access system logs, Noah replied. He thinks I can't read fast.
A beat.
He forgets I was 8 when Mom died. Not 2. The house lights flickered briefly. Noah glanced at the panel. He's accessing remotely. The thermostat display lit up. Override attempt. The furnace clicked. Noah's fingers flew over the screen. Access denied. Grant tried again. The system chimed. Manual control locked. For the first time, I saw something that almost looked like satisfaction in Noah's eyes. He's annoyed now. My stomach tightened. That means he might improvise. We heard it 22 minutes later. The distant crunch of tires on gravel. He wasn't supposed to be back for 2 days. But there he was. Grant parked normally. Not in a rush. He stepped out of the SUV, wearing the same neutral expression he wore when discussing taxes or grocery lists. He didn't look toward the windows. He didn't call my name. He unlocked the door through his phone. The system chimed again. All secure. I had never hated that voice before. He stepped inside. I forced my body to shake. Noah slumped in his chair. Grant closed the door softly behind him. The windows were opened, he said flatly. Not a question. An accusation. I stayed near the hallway, flare gun hidden behind my leg. I felt dizzy, I murmured. He studied my face. Then Noah. Then the thermostat. He didn't look worried. He looked inconvenienced. He set his phone down on the console table and slipped off his gloves. No panic. No relief that we were alive. Just calculation. He moved toward the basement door first. That detail told me everything. He wanted to check the furnace configuration before dealing with us. Because if the system logs showed interference, he would need a new narrative. Halfway down the basement stairs, he paused. His voice floated up calmly. You touched the controls. It wasn't anger yet. It was analysis. I was cold, I replied. A beat of silence. Then he came back up. Slowly. He walked toward me. His eyes were different now. The warmth was gone. You were supposed to sleep, he said quietly. There it was. Not concern. Expectation. He reached out and grabbed my wrist. Hard. Pain shot up my arm. Behind him, Noah's gaze sharpened. Grant leaned close. You don't improvise without me, he whispered. My heart pounded. Let go, I said. His grip tightened. You've been more curious lately, he continued, asking about policies, accounts. So he had noticed. I'm your wife, I replied. I'm allowed to ask. His jaw flexed. For a little longer. The words slid under my skin like ice. Noah's voice cut through the air. Clear. Sharp. She didn't open the windows because she was cold. Grant froze. The silence was violent. He turned his head slowly. Noah was standing. Not wobbling. Not bracing. Standing. Grant blinked once. Twice. For a split second, confusion overtook control. Noah, he said carefully. Sit down. I don't need to. Grant's fingers loosened on my wrist. The performance was over. What is this? Grant asked softly. His tone had shifted again, not rage, not panic. Assessment. Noah stepped forward. You forgot to reconnect the carbon monoxide alarm wire, he said evenly. And you used the same admin password you've used since 2017. Grant's face drained of color. That was the crack. You're confused, Grant replied. You've always been confused. He reached for his phone. Noah was faster. He tapped the old smart speaker on the counter. Emergency dispatch. Carbon monoxide leak and active threat at this address. The speaker beeped. Location transmitted. Grant lunged for the device, but I fired the flare. I had meant to pull the trigger so quickly, but instinct overrode timing. The flare exploded against the hallway wall in a blast of red light and blinding sparks. Smoke flooded the air. Grant swore and shielded his eyes. For the first time since I met him, he looked unpolished.
Raw.
He grabbed my shoulder violently and shoved me against the wall. You ruined everything, he snarled. There was no mask now. No performance. Just fury. Behind him, the ventilation system roared to life. Noah's earlier reroute forced the smoke toward the far wing of the house. Grant coughed.
Disoriented.
The front door burst open. Not police. Our neighbor, Tom Alvarez. Off-duty firefighter. He had always been overly observant. He stepped inside, taking in the smoke instantly. What the hell is going on? Grant switched masks mid-breath. She's unstable, he shouted. The furnace malfunctioned, she panicked. Then sheriff deputies flooded in behind Tom. Apparently the emergency system had done exactly what Noah intended. Deputy Harris looked from me to Grant to Noah, and then he froze. Because Noah was still standing. Grant saw it too. Saw the deputies registering the impossible.
He can walk, I said.
My voice was steady now. Noah stepped forward. I've always been able to. Grant moved, not toward me, but toward Noah. Instinct. Silence the variable. He didn't get far. Tom tackled him before he reached us. Grant hit the floor hard. Deputies restrained him. He struggled violently. You were supposed to die quietly, he screamed at me. Neighbors gathered outside. Phones out. Recording. Grant thrashed against the deputies. You ruined everything, he yelled again. The words echoed into the cold Oregon air. Deputy Harris cuffed him. Sir, you're under arrest. For what? Grant spat. Noah walked to the tablet on the table and held it up.
For this, he said.
He played the messages. The logs. The insurance upgrade confirmation. The carbon monoxide override timestamp. The yard fell silent. Grant stopped fighting. Not because he accepted it, but because he understood. The narrative had collapsed. He had built a perfect story. A grieving husband. A tragic malfunction. A disabled child. And in under an hour, it had unraveled. As they dragged him toward the patrol car, he locked eyes with me. There was no apology there. Only hatred. You think this is over? He said quietly. I met his stare without blinking. It is for you. The patrol car door slammed shut. And for the first time since I married him, the house was quiet without feeling watched. But this wasn't the end. Because Grant Harper didn't panic. He strategized. And if there was one thing I had learned that morning, it was that men like him never act alone. They took Grant away in handcuffs, but he didn't look defeated. He looked inconvenienced. That scared me more than if he had screamed. The yard stayed crowded long after the patrol cars left. Neighbors stood in clusters, whispering. Phones were still raised. Smoke drifted from the hallway where the flare had scorched the wall. Tom stayed. He didn't ask questions immediately. He just looked at Noah. You want to tell me how long? He asked gently. 3 years, Noah replied. Tom exhaled slowly. I knew something wasn't right about that accident. My stomach tightened. What do you mean? I asked. Tom hesitated. Brake lines don't usually fail clean. And the fire pattern from the engine, it bothered me. Fire pattern. Engine. My mind rewound 3 years in seconds. Grant had insisted on a quick cremation. Insurance paperwork had been handled privately. He had managed every detail. Tom met my eyes. I should have pushed harder back then. Noah's voice was steady. He would have buried it. Tom didn't argue. By nightfall, the house was officially sealed as a crime scene. Deputies escorted us to a patrol car, not as suspects, as victims. That word felt unreal. Victim. I had married him, loved him, defended him. I had told people how devoted he was. At the station, they separated us. I hated that. But Noah squeezed my hand before they led him away. "I've got this," he said quietly. I believed him. Detective Marin handled my interview. Mid-40s. Sharp eyes. No unnecessary warmth. "You understand," she said, "that attempted murder requires intent and proof. I have both." She studied me carefully. "Walk me through the life insurance policy."
So I did.
The upgrade. The isolation of the house. The disabled alarm. The texts. When I mentioned Haley, her pen paused. Full name? Haley Crown. Detective Marin nodded once. "We've been watching her." My pulse spiked. For what? Financial fraud. Cryptocurrency laundering. Shell corporations. Of course. Grant hadn't just been drowning in debt. He had been swimming in something much darker. They brought Noah in after 2 hours. He didn't look tired. He looked focused. When he explained the system overrides, the rerouted breaker, the carbon monoxide cycle programming, even Detective Marin's eyebrows lifted. "You did all that?" she asked. "Yes." "Why didn't you tell anyone sooner?" Noah didn't hesitate. Because no one would believe a kid who suddenly started walking. Silence filled the room. That was the cruel genius of it. Grant had built a scenario where Noah's truth would sound like trauma-induced delusion. Detective Marin leaned back in her chair. "We're going to reopen your mother's case." Noah's jaw tightened for the first time that night. "And Haley?" I asked. "She'll run," Marin replied. "Which is good." Good. It forces mistakes. By midnight, we were placed in temporary protective housing. Not because Grant could walk free, he couldn't. But because if Haley was involved in laundering millions, she wouldn't be alone. Men like Grant rarely build networks by themselves. The next morning, everything exploded. Not her house. The story. Local news ran it first. Tech executive arrested in suspected murder plot. Then national outlets picked it up. The image they used was the one from our anniversary party last spring. Grant in a tailored suit. Hand on my waist. Noah in his wheelchair beside us. The caption called him devoted father. I felt physically ill. By noon, the insurance company contacted detectives. The $4.3 million policy had been activated for review. By afternoon, forensic technicians confirmed the carbon monoxide detector wire had been deliberately removed. No accident. No malfunction. Intent. But the real fracture came that evening. Haley tried to flee. She didn't make it past the airport. They detained her with a burner phone and 2 passports.
2.
When Detective Marin told me, something inside me shifted from shock to clarity. This had never been a desperate act. It had been scheduled, structured, engineered. They brought Grant in for formal arraignment the following day. I was advised not to attend. I went anyway. He entered the courtroom in County Orange. Clean-shaven.
Composed.
He scanned the room until he found me. His expression didn't change. But something in his eyes hardened. His attorney argued malfunction, mental instability, marital conflict. Then the prosecution played the audio from the smart speaker. Emergency dispatch. Carbon monoxide leak and active threat at this address. Then they displayed the text messages on the large courtroom screen. He's basically furniture. A ripple moved through the gallery. Grant's jaw flexed. For the first time, I saw strain. But then something happened I hadn't anticipated. Grant stood. Without being prompted. He leaned toward his attorney and whispered something. The attorney's face strained. "What?" the judge asked sharply. The prosecutor checked her phone. Then she looked at Detective Marin. And everything shifted. Because while Grant had been sitting in county jail, someone had accessed our home network remotely. From inside the house, my blood ran cold. The house was sealed. Police tape. Forensic team.
No one should have been inside.
Detective Marin stood abruptly. Your Honor, we request a recess. The judge granted it. Grant smiled.
Just barely.
And in that moment, I understood something terrifying. The house hadn't just been a murder tool. It was storage. And someone else knew how to use it. When we stepped into the hallway, Detective Marin grabbed my arm. Did Grant ever mention a backup server? I shook my head. Off-site storage? Secondary admin.
No.
She didn't look convinced. He built redundancies, she said quietly. Men like him always do. Noah stepped closer. There's a subfloor compartment in the basement, he said. We both looked at him. I saw him install it after Mom died, Noah continued. He said it was for emergency power. Detective Marin's eyes sharpened. How big? Big enough for a server rack. The air in the hallway felt thinner. Grant wasn't reacting because he still believed he controlled something. Something in that house. And if someone had accessed it, it meant he wasn't alone. It meant the plan was bigger. Much bigger. And for the first time since the arrest, I wasn't thinking about survival anymore. I was thinking about what else he had hidden beneath our feet. We were back at the house before sunset. This time with the warrant team. The police tape was cut. The front door opened not with Grant's phone, but with a forensic locksmith. The house felt different. Not haunted.
Exposed.
Like a machine caught mid-operation. Detective Marin went straight to the basement. Noah and I followed. The air still smelled faintly of burned flare residue and cold concrete. The furnace unit sat where it always had.
Clean. Polished.
Engineered. But Noah didn't look at it. He walked to the far wall, near the shelving Grant had installed 2 years ago for storage. No, Noah said. Behind that, officers removed the metal shelves. Behind them was drywall that didn't match the rest of the basement. Slight color difference. Different screws. Marin crouched and ran her fingers along the seam. Cut it. They did. When the panel came down, my knees nearly gave out. Not just a server rack. A full hidden data cabinet. Cables. Backup drives. Independent power supply.
Cooling fan.
All isolated from the visible smart system. Grant hadn't just built a smart house. He had built a control center. A forensic tech stepped forward. Live signal, he said quietly. From where? Marin asked. He checked the screen. Outbound connection active. 5 minutes ago. 5 minutes. While we were in court, Grant had known this would happen. Someone had triggered remote deletion.
Pull the main feed, Marin ordered.
They disconnected the cabinet from external network access. The tech's face tightened. He's got encrypted partitions. Can you access them? Eventually. Eventually isn't good enough, Marin said. Noah stepped closer to the rack.
He labeled them, he said.
We all looked. Tiny etched codes along the drives. Not random. Initials.
Dates.
Insurance numbers. My blood chilled. These aren't just ours, I whispered. Marin's expression hardened. How many? She asked the tech. He scanned the directory index. 17. 17 partitions. 17 families? 17 policies? 17 accidents? The room went silent. Grant hadn't been improvising financial fraud. He had been building a system. Insurance-based asset liquidation. Staged accidents. Controlled environments. Smart homes. Isolated properties. My stomach turned. Open one, Marin said. The tech bypassed the first layer of encryption. Video files populated the screen. Not us. Another house. Different layout. Different woman. A toddler playing on the floor. Timestamp from 2 years ago. Carbon monoxide calibration adjustments. Insurance policy confirmation. My hands trembled. Pause it, I whispered. Marin didn't. She let it play. The woman on screen staggered. The toddler cried weakly. Then nothing. The footage cut before emergency services arrived. I backed away from the monitor. No, I breathed. 17 partitions. 17 malfunctions. Grant hadn't just tried to kill us. He had refined the method. Behind me, Noah's voice was calm. He needed funding for the crypto losses. I stared at him. He lost investor money, Noah continued. If he couldn't repay it, they would expose him. So he created liquidity, Marin finished. With widows. With children. With fire reports and mechanical failure explanations. The forensic tech swallowed. There's transaction logs here, he said. Insurance payouts routed through shell companies. Then into crypto exchanges. Haley. She wasn't just a partner. She was financial infrastructure. The doorbell upstairs rang. Every officer in the basement froze. No one should have been allowed near the property. Marin signaled 2 deputies. They went up cautiously. We waited. 30 seconds. Then a voice echoed faintly from the entryway. Federal agents. Marin's jaw tightened. Already, she muttered. 2 agents descended into the basement. Badges out. Controlled expressions. We're taking over jurisdiction, one of them said. On what authority? Marin asked coolly. Interstate insurance fraud and cybercrime. This isn't local anymore. I felt my pulse spike again. Grant hadn't just built redundancies. He had attracted attention at levels we didn't even see. One of the agents looked at the server rack. How much have you opened? Enough, Marin replied. The agent's eyes flicked toward me. Mrs. Harper, you understand your husband may become a federal asset. The words landed like a slap. Asset. I repeated. He has leverage, the agent said calmly. Names. Financial conduits. Possibly higher-level beneficiaries. Beneficiaries. Meaning people above him. Investors who knew. Maybe even encouraged. Noah stepped closer to me. He doesn't get a deal, he said. The agent looked at him with mild surprise. That's not your call. No, Noah replied evenly. But it's his. He pointed toward the monitor. Another file had auto-loaded. Not accident footage. A spreadsheet. Future projections. 3 new policy names. 1 highlighted. Mine. Policy renewal pending in 30 days. Planned incident window. Winter storm advisory. My throat closed. They hadn't just stopped one event. We had interrupted a schedule. Marin's voice turned to steel. No one deletes anything. No one moves this server. The federal agent met her gaze. This is bigger than one family. I looked at the screen. 17 families. Maybe more. Grant wasn't just a husband who snapped. He was an engineer of grief. The agent's phone buzzed. He stepped aside to answer. I caught fragments. Talking already? Wants immunity. Naming offshore accounts. My stomach twisted. Of course he was talking. Not apologizing. Negotiating. Always negotiating. The agent returned. He's offering testimony in exchange for reduced charges. Noah didn't react. I did. He tried to murder us. He also just handed us a multi-state fraud ring, the agent replied. So he walks? No, the agent said. But he might not fall alone. The house hummed faintly around us. The same walls that almost became our coffin were now evidence. I felt something crystallize inside me. Grant had believed he controlled the narrative. Then he believed he could control the outcome. Now he believed he could control the aftermath. He was wrong, because for the first time, he no longer controlled the house. And without the house, he had nothing but his voice. And this time, people were finally listening. Grant didn't spend his first night in federal custody fighting. He negotiated. By morning, every major outlet had picked up the story. Tech entrepreneur linked to multi-state insurance death scheme. They used words like alleged architect. They used words like suspected network. They did not use the word serial, but everyone was thinking it. I watched the coverage from protective housing while Noah sat cross-legged on the floor, laptop open, scanning updates faster than most adults I knew. They're already trying to minimize him, he said quietly. On screen, one commentator described Grant as a man under extreme financial pressure. Financial pressure. As if that explained 17 dead families. As if debt created gas leaks. Detective Marin came to see us in person. He's talking, she said without preamble. Names? I asked. Yes. Is he giving you everything? She hesitated. He's giving us what benefits him.
Of course he was.
Grant never surrendered without extracting value. He's claiming the others escalated it, Marin continued. Says the first two were accidents that solved problems. Then the investors realized the model. The model. My stomach churned. He's positioning himself as the engineer, she said. Not the mastermind. Noah looked up from the screen. Who funded him? Marin's jaw tightened. That's what we're mapping. By the end of the week, 4 additional arrests were made. 2 financial brokers. 1 insurance adjuster. 1 data analyst who specialized in risk assessment anomalies. Every single one connected through shell companies to Haley. Haley, who had tried to run. Haley, who now faced conspiracy to commit murder across state lines. But then the unexpected fracture came. Grant retracted part of his testimony. He claimed coercion. Said he spoke under duress. Said the server logs were manipulated. He accused me. She accessed the system, his attorney told reporters. She had motive. She benefited from the policy. I felt something cold and sharp settle inside my chest. He was pivoting. If he couldn't control the narrative through cooperation, he would poison it. The next hearing was worse. Grant took the stand for a preliminary federal review. He looked thinner, but not broken.
His voice was calm.
Measured. I love my wife, he said. I almost laughed. He described my increasing paranoia, my obsession with finances. He even mentioned Noah's psychological instability following trauma. He tried to suggest Noah's sudden recovery was stress-induced hysteria, a miracle too convenient. I squeezed Noah's hand under the table. He didn't flinch. Then the prosecution played the basement footage. Not the edited copy. The raw server extraction. Metadata intact. IP routing logs. Encryption keys tied to Grant's biometric login. The courtroom shifted. Grant's composure thinned. Then they played something he hadn't expected. An internal voice memo. Time-stamped 3 weeks before the attempt on us. Grant's voice, low and clinical. Policy maturity aligns with winter weather advisory. Ventilation delay under 5 minutes reduces suspicion. Ensure child immobility maintained. Ensure child immobility maintained. Noah's grip tightened around mine. Grant's attorney tried to object. Too late. The judge silenced him. Grant looked at the monitor. For the first time, he looked uncertain. After court, federal agents approached us. There's more, one said. They had decrypted an additional partition. This one wasn't a client file. It was labeled contingency. Inside were blueprint revisions for our house. Emergency escape routes. Dead zones in camera coverage. Manual override instructions for physical harm if automation failed, including one file labeled manual termination scenario. I felt sick. What does that mean? I asked. The agent's eyes didn't soften. It means if the gas failed, he had a secondary plan. The flare, the hatchet, the irritation in his eyes when we didn't die on schedule. He hadn't come home to check the furnace. He had come home to finish it. Noah's voice was quiet. He would have staged a break-in. The agent nodded. There are notes referencing forced entry and self-defense. I closed my eyes. He had rehearsed our deaths, written them, timed them, scripted them. Grant Harper didn't just plan to murder his family. He drafted it like a product rollout. The prosecution denied any immunity deal. The scale was too large. The evidence too clear. 17 confirmed cases. 5 under review. Grant's leverage evaporated. And, without leverage, he began to unravel. 2 weeks later, during a closed federal deposition, he lost control. Not publicly, not theatrically, but in a way more telling. When shown footage of Noah standing in the hallway the night of the arrest, Grant reportedly leaned forward and said, "He wasn't supposed to move. Not I didn't try. Not that's fabricated. Just, he wasn't supposed to move. Like a design flaw. Like a malfunction. Like furniture shifting unexpectedly." That statement ended any possibility of reduced sentencing. The charges stacked. Attempted murder. Multiple counts of conspiracy. insurance fraud, wire fraud,
Cybercrime.
medical record tampering, obstruction. When Haley realized Grant's deal was collapsing, she attempted to redirect blame entirely onto him. Emails surfaced, recorded calls, her voice discussing clean exits. There would be no escape for either of them. Months passed. The trial became national. Families from other states came forward. Widowers, siblings. One mother who lost both her daughter and grandson in what had been ruled a furnace malfunction. She sat behind us in court one day. She touched my shoulder. He would have done it again, she whispered.
Yes.
He would have. The verdict took 6 hours. Guilty on every major count. The courtroom was silent when it was read. Grant didn't look at me. He looked at the judge, as if searching for a procedural loophole. He was sentenced to life, without parole in federal prison. No dramatic speech. No apology.
Just a tight jaw.
And when they led him away, he finally looked at Noah. There was no rage there anymore. No calculation. Just something hollow. Because Noah had broken the system. The variable he underestimated. Months later, after the sentencing, I received a notification on my phone. Federal Bureau of Prisons. Inmate Grant Harper found unresponsive in his cell. Apparent suicide. I stared at the screen for a long time. No tears came. No relief either. Just a quiet, complicated stillness. Noah stood beside me. It's over, he said. I nodded. We moved to a smaller house closer to town. No smart automation. No hidden panels. Just ordinary locks. Ordinary wiring. Ordinary silence. One evening, months later, the hallway light flickered once. My heart jumped before I could stop it. Noah walked calmly to the switch. He unscrewed the plate. Loose wire. Nothing more. He looked at me. It's just a house, he said. I exhaled slowly. But as I turned off the light and walked down the hall, I understood something Grant had never anticipated. He believed intelligence was control. He believed control was power. He believed power made him untouchable. He was wrong. Power isn't building a system no one can escape. Power is surviving it. I didn't destroy him. He destroyed himself. And this time, the house wasn't watching us. We were watching back. The story didn't end with the verdict. It evolved. Because when a man like Grant falls, the vacuum he leaves behind pulls other things into the light. 3 months after his death in prison, Detective Marin called me again. Her voice was different. Not urgent. Measured.
We found something, she said.
My body reacted before my mind did. What? A secondary beneficiary structure. I closed my eyes. Explain. Grant didn't just profit from policies, she continued. He reinvested through a blind trust. Where? Residential tech startups. My stomach tightened. Smart home security systems, she clarified. Automation platforms. Remote health monitoring. Of course. He hadn't just been using the technology. He had been shaping it. Funding vulnerabilities. Encouraging centralized control. If you build the lock, you understand how to break it. No more deaths. I asked quietly. No confirmed ones after your case, she said. Your interruption collapsed the model. Collapsed the model. I glanced at Noah across the kitchen table. He was taller now. Stronger. He no longer flinched at sudden noises. But he still noticed everything. What's left? I asked Marin. Financial cleanup. Civil suits. Asset seizure. And the families? Compensation funds are being structured. Money. It felt obscene, but necessary. After I hung up, Noah closed his laptop slowly. He didn't just want money, he said. I looked at him. He wanted control over unpredictability.
He was right.
Grant's entire life had been about reducing risk, eliminating variables, turning human beings into managed outcomes. And the one thing he never calculated was resistance from the people he believed were weakest. Weeks later, a package arrived. No return address. My hands went cold. I didn't open it. I called Marin. It was cleared by bomb squad protocol before it was released to us. Inside was a single external hard drive. No note. No message. Just a label in handwriting I recognized instantly. Contingency B.
Grants.
My throat tightened. For a moment, I considered destroying it, burning it, throwing it into the river. But that would have been emotional. And I had learned something from surviving him. Emotion is predictable. Information is power. We didn't open it at home. We brought it to federal investigators. The drive contained one file, a recorded message, time-stamped the night before his arrest. Grant sat at his desk in the basement.
Calm. Composed.
He looked directly into the camera. "If you're watching this," he began. Then something failed. Noah stood beside me in the viewing room. Grant continued. "Every system depends on weak points. Emotion. Attachment.
Fear."
He leaned forward slightly. I misjudged one variable. Noah's jaw tightened. "You." He didn't say Noah's name. Just,
"You."
"I assumed immobility," Grant said. "I assumed silence." He paused. "Adaptation is survival. If you're seeing this, then you adapted faster than I did." There was no apology in his voice. No regret. Just analysis. "You will be watched," he added calmly. "Not by me, but by others who learned from the same architecture." The screen went black. Silence filled the room. One of the agents exhaled slowly. "Paranoid narcissism," he muttered. "Maybe. But I didn't feel paranoia. I felt clarity." Grant believed in systems, in networks, in hierarchies of power. He believed someone would replace him. Maybe someone tried. But the exposure had changed the environment. Insurance companies rewrote protocols. Smart home manufacturers were forced into transparency audits. Federal oversight expanded. His model couldn't breathe anymore. That night, back in our quiet, ordinary house, I stood in the hallway for a long time, listening. No hidden fans. No secondary circuits. Just the faint hum of electricity in old wires. Noah came up beside me. "You're not scared," he observed. "No. You're thinking." "Yes." "About what?" I looked at him. He believed the world is controlled by people who never get caught. Noah considered that. And he got caught. Not because he made a mistake in code. Not because encryption failed. But because he underestimated something he considered weak. A child.
A wife. Trust.
Grant saw relationships as leverage. He never understood loyalty, or instinct, or the quiet intelligence of someone who has nothing left to lose. Years later, when reporters still tried to retell the story, they framed it as a technological thriller. A smart house turned deadly. A criminal mastermind exposed. They always asked the same question. "How did you know?" I never told them the full truth. The truth is, the house wasn't what saved us. Technology didn't defeat him. Noah did. By pretending. By waiting. By surviving long enough to choose the right moment. Grant believed power meant eliminating risk. But risk is what makes us human. We moved again, eventually. Not out of fear. Out of choice. No automation. No integrated systems. Just sunlight through ordinary windows. Sometimes on cold winter mornings, I still wake before dawn. I lie still, listening, breathing. Not because I'm afraid of gas. Not because I expect footsteps. But because silence means something different now. It means we're alive. It means the plan failed. And somewhere in a federal archive behind locked evidence doors sits the server that once held 17 stolen futures. It doesn't hum anymore. It doesn't watch. Grant thought he built a house that obeyed him. He thought he designed the perfect ending. He was wrong. The house didn't watch us. We were the ones watching him. And in the end, he was the only one who didn't see it coming. For a while, life tried to become ordinary again. And that almost frightened me more than the chaos ever had. No cameras. No hidden panels. No sealed evidence bags. Just groceries on the counter. School forms. Utility bills. Noah started public school under his real medical status. Physical therapy records corrected. Neurological assessments updated. The doctors called it remarkable recovery. We never corrected them. Let them believe in miracles. It was easier than explaining survival strategy. But ordinary life has a strange way of testing whether trauma has truly loosened its grip. It started with a letter. Not threatening, not dramatic. Just certified mail from a civil attorney representing the estate of Grant Harper. I stared at the envelope for a long time before opening it. Inside was a formal notice. Grant had attempted to file a posthumous civil petition before his death. Against me, claiming marital conspiracy and coercion. He had tried to rewrite the ending, even from a cell, even after conviction. I didn't feel anger. I felt something colder. Predictability. He had never accepted narrative loss. He would try to contaminate the record until his last breath. I called our attorney. He filed it weeks before he died, she explained. It has no standing, but it will trigger review of marital assets. Assets. There it was. Grant had hidden more than crime. He had hidden money. Federal seizure covered most confirmed fraud accounts. But the trust structure Marin mentioned months ago had splintered into smaller funds before being frozen. Some were still under review, which meant someone out there had been trying to protect what remained. That someone wasn't Grant.
He was dead.
Which meant the network hadn't fully collapsed. That night, I didn't tell Noah immediately. He sensed it anyway. You're calculating again, he said from the kitchen doorway. Yes. Is it danger? No. That was the honest answer. It wasn't danger. It was unfinished architecture. The next development came quietly. A journalist requested an interview. Not for a dramatic segment. For a long-form investigative series on corporate-enabled domestic surveillance. She didn't want the murder attempt. She wanted the infrastructure. The companies he invested in, she said over the phone, they're still operating. That caught my attention. Under new boards, she clarified. But the patents remain. Grant's blind trust had funded early-stage automation systems that centralized household data into single administrative hubs. He hadn't just built smart houses. He had backed a design philosophy. One user. Full control. Minimal transparency. It's legal, the journalist said, but ethically murky. Of course it was. Grant thrived in murky. I agreed to meet her. Not as a victim. As a witness to design abuse. The article went live 6 weeks later. It didn't sensationalize. It dissected. It showed how centralized domestic tech could be weaponized in abusive dynamics. It cited our case without exploiting it. And something interesting happened. 3 former employees from one of Grant's funded startups came forward. Internal memos. Discussions about user override invisibility. About disabling safety alerts without triggering external notifications. My skin went cold reading the excerpts. He hadn't just used features. He had shaped them. The public response was immediate. Consumer protection agencies initiated reviews. Share values dipped. Boards restructured again. It wasn't revenge. It was exposure. And exposure dismantles systems more effectively than rage ever could. But the real shift came from Noah. He started coding again. Not quietly tinkering like before. Openly. Purposefully. What are you building? I asked one evening. Distributed safety architecture. He replied without looking up. I smiled faintly. In English. Systems where no single user has silent override authority. He finally looked at me. Transparency by design. Grant had centralized power. Noah was decentralizing it. Grant built hidden compartments. Noah was building systems that recorded every override permanently. Immutable logs. Shared accountability. I watched him work and realized something profound. Grant's greatest mistake wasn't underestimating us. It was teaching us how he thought. He believed information equal dominance. He never imagined it could also equal defense. Years passed. The civil petition was dismissed. Remaining assets were liquidated into victim compensation funds. The trust dissolved. Haley's appeals failed. She remains in federal custody. Grant's name surfaces occasionally in criminology case studies now. Insurance model exploitation. Domestic automation abuse. Risk architecture. He became a cautionary lecture. Not a mastermind. Just a pattern. One winter evening, nearly 5 years later, Noah and I sat on our porch watching rain move through streetlight glow. No isolation. Neighbors visible. Ordinary noise. You ever miss him? I asked quietly. Noah didn't answer immediately. I miss who I thought he was, he said finally. That honesty hurt more than anger would have. Me too, I admitted. Because that's the part no one talks about. You don't just lose the villain. You lose the illusion. And illusions are comforting. He stood and stretched. I'm applying to MIT next fall, he said casually. I blinked. For what? Cybersecurity engineering. Of course. Not to dominate systems. To fortify them. Grant had built a house that watched. Noah was going to build systems that couldn't lie. Later that night, as I locked the front door, manually, I paused. Listened. Nothing. No hum beyond ordinary wiring. No secret fans. No hidden servers. Just wind. Grant believed control created safety. He believed isolation meant protection. He believed intelligence made him untouchable. He was wrong on every count. Safety comes from shared visibility. Protection comes from community. And intelligence without empathy is just calculation. We were supposed to die quietly. That was his design. Instead, the design collapsed. And from the wreckage, something better formed. Not vengeance. Not paranoia. Awareness. The house that watched us is gone. The man who built it is gone. But the lesson remains. Never surrender full control of your world to someone who insists they know better. And never underestimate the quiet ones in the room. They're usually the ones rewriting the ending. The last piece of this story isn't about Grant. It's about what happens after the headlines fade. After the documentaries move on. After the courtroom sketches are archived. Because survival is loud at first. Then it becomes quiet. 10 years have passed. Noah is no longer the boy in the wheelchair. He is taller than Grant ever was. Sharper in ways that don't need to be proven.
He did go to MIT.
He did build what he promised. Distributed safety systems. Transparent architecture. Domestic tech that cannot be silently overridden by a single administrator. His research has been cited in federal standards. Sometimes I read those papers late at night. Not because I understand every line of code, but because I understand the intent behind it. Protection, not control. Grant wanted a world where one person held the master key. Noah is building a world where keys are shared. That is the difference between domination and trust. Every year on the anniversary of the night he came back to finish us, Noah and I take a walk. No ritual. No flowers. Just a walk. We don't talk about the flare, or the basement, or the server rack humming behind drywall. We talk about normal things. Work. Weather. Dinner. Because the most powerful revenge isn't spectacle. It's normalcy. People still ask me if I hate Grant. I don't. Hate requires energy. And he already took enough. What I feel instead is clarity. Grant believed he was the smartest person in every room. He believed intelligence excused morality. He believed systems could replace empathy. He believed weakness deserved elimination. He miscalculated one thing. Humans adapt. Noah adapted by pretending, by observing, by waiting. I adapted by listening when the impossible happened, by choosing not to freeze. That's what saved us. Not technology, not luck, not heroics. Adaptation. There's something else I've never said publicly. The night the hallway light flickered in our new house, years ago, I wasn't afraid because I thought Grant was haunting us. I was afraid because part of me wondered if I had learned too much from him, if I had become hypervigilant, if I would always scan ceilings for cameras, always check wiring, always calculate exit routes. For a while, I did. Healing isn't forgetting. It's choosing when to stop scanning. And one day, I realized something simple. I no longer check the thermostat before bed. I no longer listen for hidden fans behind walls. I no longer analyze the tone in someone's voice for manipulation. That's when I knew he no longer lived in my nervous system. Grant's greatest weapon wasn't carbon monoxide. It wasn't encryption. It wasn't isolation.
It was certainty.
He was certain we wouldn't fight back. Certain we wouldn't notice. Certain we were weaker. He built a house that watched us. He built a plan that eliminated variables. But he forgot something fundamental. The people you try to reduce to variables are still human. And humans are unpredictable. That unpredictability ended him. Years later, when I speak privately to women in closed support groups, not as a headline but as a person, I tell them something simple. If someone insists on controlling every system in your life, it isn't love. It's architecture. And architecture can be dismantled. Brick by brick. Wire by wire. Password by password. I didn't destroy him. The truth did. Noah didn't defeat him with strength. He defeated him with patience. Grant believed he built the perfect ending. He believed we would drift off quietly and the world would nod in sympathy. Instead, the world watched him. Watched his mask fracture. Watched the system unravel. Watched the architect collapse inside his own design. Sometimes, late at night, when the house is silent and ordinary and blessedly unremarkable, I stand in the hallway for a moment. Not to check. Not to fear. Just to breathe. The air is clean. The lights are steady. The doors lock with a simple turn of metal and wood. No apps. No remote access. No hidden panels. Just life. Grant once told me, long before I knew who he was, that the future belonged to those who controlled the infrastructure. He was wrong. The future belongs to those who protect the people inside it. He built a house that watched us. We built a life that doesn't need to. And that is the quietest victory of all.